I taught journalism for 15 years. And more than any other class in high school, I always thought that journalism provided a little taste of reality more for teenagers. Planning, organizing, deadlines. Talking with strangers, sounding smart, like adults try to do, to varying degrees of success. Managing a budget and paying bills. Creating, the creative process, writing, thinking, revising, working as a team. Even in journalism, you get to stir things up a little bit. You get to make people mad, and you have to learn to live with it. It's life. But the thing that I like most about teaching journalism is when the work and the names of the kids would come out in print. And that was a beautiful thing. Which is why it surprised me when I got home one night, sat down at the dining room table, flipped up my laptop to put comments on the newest round of stories that came in from my journalism students. 80% of them didn't come in. Another 10% that came in weren't worth printing. It was frustrating. And I thought, I'm mad, and I'm going to tell them. So I thought, I'm going to go and I'm going to preach. And I'm going to tell them about work ethic and responsibility and how you have to start growing up. And then I thought, that's not a good idea. Kids aren't going to respond to that. So I took a different tack, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to motivate them. I'm going to get them all excited about learning and about themselves and pick them up, rah-rah. But that kind of motivation only lasts so long. It's extrinsic motivation, not internal. And I knew it would fade. So what I did is I went the next day and I gathered them all in a circle. And I simply asked one question. What's up? And once they realized I wasn't mad and I wasn't going to preach to them, they started to tell me, "Oh, Mr. Holmes, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to disappoint you, but I just got a lot going on in my life. My mom just left. My dad's drinking. My sister's cutting herself. I'm all stressed out. I think I'm going to freak out. I don't think I can handle life anymore. In fact, I don't even know if I should be here." And then one kid said, this is all of them going around, every single kid, crying. One kid said, "Mr. Holmes, remember the other day when I came and I showed you my college acceptance letter? And I was all excited because I never thought I could get into college. And I went home and I told my mom. And my mom said, I don't know why you want to do that. You're just going to fail." And I was trying to teach journalism. There's a disconnect, a literal and figurative lack of connection between the status quo high school curriculum and what students actually need and want to learn. And it's right in front of us. A couple times a year, I get to escape the city and find myself driving back to northeast Missouri. Highway 61 whisks most people past my hometown, but I veer off and wind my way through the college where my father taught, down the hill to the high school where I learned, and over to the empty corner lot where my house used to be. It was a big house by small town standards, with a front porch that faced east toward the Mississippi River. Trains, like teenagers, would rush past the river, the whistles announcing both arrival and departure simultaneously. I don't recall them ever stopping. The older I get, the more I think about those times when I was in high school. What I did, what I said, what I valued. From baseball and bicycles, to girls and cars, girls in cars. I like that particular time period, adolescence. Partly because I've got a couple teenagers at home of my own, but mainly because I spent the last 2 decades teaching teenagers. And I like it. But weirder than that, weirder than spending 20 years liking being around teenagers. The more that I try to remember my high school years, the more that I actually can. There's something that memory researchers have discovered called the reminiscence bump. And what that means is that older people, and I guess that's me, The older people get, the more they remember their adolescence. The clearer it becomes. The stories that formed them in high school. This is great, huge advantage when you teach teenagers. Because what it does, it allows you to take what you know about teenagers' development, their emotional, social, and intellectual development, and you combine it with what you remember about high school. And then it all becomes very, very clear about high school curriculum and what we should be teaching in high school. What you really should be spending your time doing 7 hours a day, 180 days a year for 4 years. And it came to me what the best curriculum should look like. And more specifically, what the best class should look like. I remember when I was a kid, I asked a lot of questions. A lot of questions. And I know that sounds really weird, but frankly, I think that you're not that much different. I think you ask a lot of questions too. And the older I get, the more I think about this remembrance bump reminds me of things from high school, and I start to think about these things and how I can use them in my classroom. And so I grab a journal and I go off and I sit somewhere and I think and I come up with these ideas. And the other day I had my journal and I'm thinking, what was it that I thought in high school? And so I wrote some of them down. I'm going to share some of them with you. Questions I remember asking or wondering when I was in high school. Does God exist? How do airplanes fly? Why are some people poor? Where does that road lead? What if I hadn't been adopted? How do I feel about peace and happiness? How do I find it? Is it cheating if I don't get caught? How do I know if she likes me? Why is Dad so mean to Mom? What makes someone smart? Can you get pregnant from that? Why are some people racist? Are we born good or evil? Is it better to fail or quit? Is there life after death? Does Mom love Dad? Does she love herself? What is reality? Is time real? And who am I? Really? I wondered if I was a good kid and if I would be a good man. And I remember asking one question. I asked the teacher one question that really threw her for a loop. I said, why are we here? And I didn't mean alive. I didn't mean in school. I meant alive. I meant, why are we here? What's our purpose? What's the point? And it kind of freaked her out, so I said, never mind, and I stopped asking questions, but I never stopped having them. Usually they would occur in solitude. When I was kicking rocks down by the riverfront, walking the railroad tracks, and riding my bike past the cornfields. Big questions. Time to think and debate and dream. Safe places to think and debate and dream. There were places like that in school. To think, debate, and dream. For the most part, there still aren't. And that's bad. Instead of asking questions, asking kids to ask questions, of facilitating that thought process, of asking people to explore themselves, of facilitating self-awareness, what we do is we force kids to gorge and regurgitate facts and figures. We're more interested in student rankings and school ratings than asking big questions. I have a big question for you. I want you to think about this, all of you. What's the most important thing you can learn in high school? Take your time and think about that. The one most important thing you can learn in high school. Anybody have it? There are 26,000 public high schools in the United States and another 10,000 private ones. Shouldn't they all be able to articulate that one thing, the most important thing that people should learn in high school? Teenagers, I ask you. What's the one most important thing? Parents, how about you? Teachers, surely you have an answer. In 2005, Gallup actually did a poll, and they asked Americans, what is the one most important thing that kids should learn in high school? What do you think they found out? Biology? STEM, writing, reading, social skills, how to get along. That was the number one thing, social skills and how to get along. Look at your course of studies. Look at the dozens of classes in high school. Where is social skills? Where's that class? Where's the class that says, how to get along with others 101? It doesn't exist. It's odd because according to science and the advances in neurobiology and what we know about neuroplasticity and how the brain can change, there's a whole lot that's changed since that survey. Nothing's really much changed in the curriculum. Graduation requirements are pretty much the same. But science has changed dramatically. So if I were to redesign a curriculum that really is what kids need and want, it would be based on science. I wrote those down the other day too. Let me tell you what my high school curriculum would look like. Now I don't mean that we should not teach the basics. I don't mean we shouldn't have composition, history, science, math. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that they're secondary to these other things, such as freshman year. Strengths and virtues. There's good science. There's a lot of scientific research out there that talks about identifying your strengths and virtues and paying particular attention to them can help you be more successful. Can actually facilitate the learning. Stimulates the brain in a way that learning increases when you focus on your strengths and virtues. Other classes that I would have as requirements. Resilience and perseverance. Because life isn't perfect. It kind of sucks sometimes. So the trick isn't to avoid the bad stuff. That's going to happen. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it will, and it will continue. The question is, how do we get over it? Resilience and perseverance. Mindset and grit. What do you tell yourself in your head? I've been talking to teenagers for a long time, and they talk to me and they tell me what's in their head. The talk that they say to themselves, I can't do this, I'll fail, they don't like me. When you tell yourself those things, you keep yourself from learning. It's scientifically proven. And when you tell yourself positive things, you can actually do things you couldn't do before. Positive psychology. Psychology used to focus on fixing all the things that are bad in us. Positive psychology takes a different turn. It's really the essence of what it should be. What's our human potential? What can we become? Rather than going to therapy and talking about all the things we can't do, what if we had a class where we talked about what we could do? Neuroplasticity, which I said before, the brain can actually grow. They didn't think this before, but recently they found out that the brain can actually grow. When was the last time your teacher taught you that in detail? That your IQ is not fixed. Emotional regulation. If there's one thing that I think is wrong with this world, with the way that we behave, it's that we don't regulate our emotions. We aren't taught how to. You could address so many of the world's problems if you took kids and all throughout school, especially in high school, you taught them about emotional regulation. Engagement and autonomy. Self-actualization, joy, well-being, and flourishing. It's not about being happy. It's not about finding happiness so much as it is about finding how to flourish, how to be the best you. There's science on this. When was the last time you took a class on that? Culminating in a senior year project, a senior seminar, which I would call storytelling. I know storytelling matters, not because of the science, but because of my years as a teacher. And I had one instance in particular, which was an epiphany for me. I always had a sense that there was power in storytelling, that this one thing made all the difference for me. It happened about a decade ago in Chicago. I went to this event called Writers Week. And Writers Week was where this one high school would gather all these professional authors and songwriters and poets together for a week. And they would share their craft with the high school students. They would talk about the writing process and the publishing process and how you can actually make a living with words, if you believe you can. But the best part of that event wasn't the professionals. Although they were phenomenal, and it was exciting to hear them, that wasn't the most exciting part. In fact, if you were there, you'd know, and everyone would say, that they were really the opening act for the main stars, which were the kids. Because the kids took the stage too, and they got to share their own stories. All kinds of stories about success and failure, love and hate, regret, hope, lack of hope. And it was a magical thing. And I realized that this type of event, the sharing of stories, and faculty too shared, this was the essence of what education should be. Kids were engaged. I mean completely engaged in learning because of the human connection. And that's really what it's all about, human connection. If you haven't listened to a teenager lately, and I mean really listened, like not waited to say something, waiting to provide unsolicited advice or wisdom, but just listen to them, then you'd know how school is just not relevant to what's going on in their heads and their hearts. Kids want to ask big questions. They want to share them. They want to discuss them and debate them. War and race, love and hate, acceptance and rejection, how to avoid the ugly in life, and how to find the beautiful. Stories. You know, brains love stories too. There's actually science also that shows that the brain changes with good storytelling. But I'm not a scientist, I'm not going to talk about the science. My expertise is in human connection. What I do is I provide opportunities for kids to connect. And that I find is something they need more than anything else. Everyone becomes a teacher, and everyone becomes a student. Learning about yourself, and about others, and about life. And folks, that's what teenagers want. They just want to learn about life. So why don't we teach them? I propose that not only do we revamp a high school curriculum, that all those other classes that we currently have are still there. I don't want to get rid of them. We need them. We need to prepare ourselves for college. We need to prepare ourselves for jobs. I get that. But that's secondary to human connection. We need to give teenagers today what they need. And they need to ask questions, and they need to share, and they need to connect. But until that happens, until that day when adults start actually listening to the science of learning, then all I can do is give you permission. When I teach, I share what I have inside myself too. When I say connection, I don't just mean the teacher stand back and you watch the kids connect. It's not what it's about. It's about total connection. Teacher and student, everyone. So when I teach writing, I share my own writing. I share my own thoughts, my own feelings. Because whether you believe it or not, as old as I am, I was right there and we're not that different. We all want hope. We all want to be loved. We all want to believe we're going to be the best we can be. So what I did the other day, knowing I was going to come here today, is I wrote something for you. And I want to share that for you now. This is for all the teenagers who don't have a voice in school. I give you permission. If no one else in your world is giving you this, know that I am now. I give you permission to ask big questions, to think, debate, and dream about life and your place in it, to wonder where that road leads and whether to take it. You have my permission to wonder if everyone is attractive to at least one person somewhere, or if movies and magazines are actually telling the truth and beauty is one-dimensional. To wonder if friendship is a genuine thing or just a matter of convenience and utility. To wonder whether that girl in your government class wants to Netflix and chill or whether you're stuck in the friend zone forever. Wonder that too. You have my permission to ask questions about some teachers and why they're there and why they dismiss you, about your parents and whether they care and if they miss you, and if when you have a job, 2 cars, a house, and a kid, will work become more important for you too? Much time is wasted on mindless routine and not enough invested in connection. I give you permission to borrow a teacher's pencil and use it. Tell your story. Graphite erases dependent clauses and causes of disengagement. And the smears are merely evidence that you exist. You and I, young and old, We aren't that different. We just want to be seen and heard. It's the basis for our motivation and our desire to care about learning and living. Recognize the value of your story, of all stories. And if high school won't give you that opportunity, gather some people and do it on your own. You have permission. Because human connection, more than anything else, is what leads to learning. The potential for human connection should be what high school is all about.